Hi everybody, this is Matty Simmons and this is Comedy Happens. And this is the best masseuse, but she's not really the masseuse, she's my daughter Kate, who's the director of this show.
I can't believe you're making me do this on camera.
Oh,
it's
that's
so
so
unprofessional.
good, such a great masseuse.
Tell them who our guests are.
What?
The guests.
Oh, our guests tonight are the original Griswold kids, Anthony Michael Hall and Dana Barron, as Audrey and Rusty in the spectacular original Vacation.
I would like to direct you to tell that joke. You told me in the car the other day, you know.
Another one.
Yeah, all right, cool. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Guy goes to a party and bumps into his doctor. He says, "Doc, can I ask some advice?" Doctor says, "Of course." Guy says, "I think my wife is losing her hearing." Doctor says, "Well, before I send her to a hearing specialist, try a simple test. Tonight when she's making dinner, stand 3 or 4 rooms away and say, 'What's for dinner?' And if she doesn't hear you, walk to the next nearest room and say, 'What's for dinner?' until you get very close to her, and then yell at her. If she doesn't hear at all, then we'll send her to a specialist." So the guy goes home that night. His wife is cooking dinner. He goes into a room 3 rooms away and says, "Susan, what's for dinner?" Nothing. Goes to the next room closer. Says, "Susan, what's for dinner?" No answer. He goes to the room next to the kitchen and says, "Susan, what's for dinner?" No answer. Now he's really upset. He goes in, stands right behind her and yells in her ear, "Susan, what's for dinner?" She turns to him, "For the 5th time, I'll tell you, chicken."
We will be right back with Anthony Michael Hall and Dana Barron.
How did that sound? Hey, we're back. Boy, what a great night this is for me. Remembering National Lampoon's Vacation. It was one of the pictures that I produced that will stay with me forever. Of course, we did make 4 sequels after that. I don't include the whatever they did about a year or so ago. That was unspeakable. But we do have 2 very speakable people, very precious people with us tonight. The original Griswold kids, Dana Barron and Anthony Michael Hall, who were Audrey and Rusty in the very first Vacation.
Thanks to you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I remember you were easy to pick up, to audition. I don't mean easy, but it was a very quick hiring. You were perfect. You were right on target. We couldn't find anybody for the boy in New York, in LA.
Huh.
And we said, the casting director said, "Let's go to New York." Went to New York, and the 3rd person came in was Rusty. And he had a mouthful of metal.
Braces, yeah.
Braces. And Harold and I looked at each other and went, yes. And I remember after the audition, your mother was there, and I walked up to your mother and said, "He's our boy, but he's got to keep the braces on."
Oh, that's awesome. She still remembers that story to this day.
Yes.
And thanks to that job you gave me. I mean, you gave birth to my career, Matty. You and
Well, you
Harold.
had.
I appreciate it.
I remember you made a good movie before that.
Yeah, I'd done a couple things before that, you know, as a kid actor growing up in New York, but that was really such a breakthrough and just such a great experience. I mean, we had so much fun. You know, we really went on the road. You know, this is before green screen and all that stuff. So
It's a real vacation.
yeah, it really was, wasn't it?
Both of you so memorable in the role.
Thank you. Yeah.
And tell us about your career before Vacation.
Well, I started kind of like Anthony Michael and Michael.
Yeah.
We call. Started when I was really young. Tom Hanks did his first film, and then I went to Broadway, and because I had those, that you guys trusted me doing a big film. So it was my first big film, although the one with Tom Hanks was on a smaller. It's a horror film. He knows you're alone.
Well, it was a tough decision. All you had done was Broadway and Tom Hanks. I mean, you know.
Yeah, but still,
what kind of credits are those?
Enough that got me the job, though. But it was, like I was joking earlier, that I fought a lot with my sister, my older sister, And in the movie, you know, we're squabbling all the time. So the audition was fighting. I'm like, I can handle that. So I had to fight in the scene. It was just great. It was perfect.
I love that scene where he's kind of teasing you in the car, and you turn and yell, "Daddy!" or something like that.
Yeah.
Rusty's teasing me,
Yeah.
and it was so reminiscent to all of us who were fathers or kids or in that position, and so many of us were.
Right.
And I remember that my oldest son used to tease my daughter, and she'd say, "Daddy, Michael's teasing," you know, the same
goes on.
thing.
Right.
And that's why the
Right.
picture was so great. It was because it
It's real.
was so relatable.
It's so true. And
And
to this
tell me,
day, for the same
Michael,
reason.
tell me about some of the things. I hear you, after vacation, you made a couple of movies.
I did a couple films, yeah. Well,
Couple.
we were speaking before we started taping today. There's another gentleman, the great John Hughes, that you also
Yeah,
got
protege
him
of
started.
mine,
Yeah,
yes.
another protege of yours, sir. Yeah, and so John and I, after I worked for you and Harold, I went on to do 16 Candles and Breakfast Club and Weird Science with John, who was a very prolific writer. And you gave him this shot at the magazine, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great story. You were telling me about how he was based in Chicago, didn't really want to come to New York to work.
Hated
Yeah.
LA, hated New
Wow.
York,
Yeah.
loved Chicago.
And you gave him that writing assignment, and then he just, I guess, came in once a month, like you were telling us, right? For
Yeah.
editorial meetings? He
I
was a
said,
great
just
guy.
keep writing, John.
Yeah.
All right, how about, you did those wonderful 80s movies with John. Tell me about something that really, you remember as being
Sure.
really funny.
Well, first of all, the first thing I remember is when we did 16 Candles, Molly and I kind of, we kind of butted heads, and I just remember I was like a little muse to him, we would shoot a scene, and then I would run to the sidelines, and he would give me a note, and we would kind of conspire together to make the scene fire. And he was great like that. Harold was the same way. They were so great because they were such naturally gifted writers of comedy, but they were never uptight about the process. You get it the way it is on the page, and then if things happen and they develop, they would let those things happen. And John was great like that. He was really great at, and Harold too.
Deep sense of humor.
Yeah. But relatable too, like you said.
Kindness.
Dan, tell me about something in your career that you remember that being really funny. Maybe,
Funny in my career or in
an
vacation?
perhaps an earlier or later. I know you made 2 movies for me, in the 2000s.
Right.
Yes. I've done easily over 70 projects, so there's a lot to go on. Plus going to college, and I also have a child, and that's been doing vacation and then having a child after, you just go, oh, now I get it, because it's on a whole different level. He's Uncle Mike, by the way. My kid knows him as Uncle Mike.
Yeah.
My
So-
14 and 15-year-old stars were now, but one of them now is a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
It's odd, and just like vacation just makes me laugh. There's so many funny things that happen, and that's why people can relate to vacation, because constantly funny things happen with your child. You're just in stitches, and we have a puppy now, and that's just insanity. That's taken it to another level. So it's a full house of vacation all the time in our house.
That's how it is. I got something for both of you.
Okay.
One at a time. Michael, I'll ask you first.
Okay, Matty.
Your favorite scene of vacation?
Oh, God, there's so many. Well, the scene in the desert was a lot of fun with Chevy. You remember we were shooting that? And we were in
Like a man
The
That is
drinking.
one of the great humorous scenes in movies.
Thank you.
I think that scene with you and Chevy where he's lecturing and you're drinking all the beer.
Right. And also,
I
there's
will
this,
never forget
the
that.
running gag of forgetting our names, too, right? You and your
Yeah.
sister, like Audrey. Oh, yeah, Audrey, right. So there were all these
Which is,
great...
I know it happens with me all the time. I
Right.
call Kate, who was our director, incidentally.
Right.
I call her Julie, who was my oldest daughter, and I
Right.
call Julie Kate, and things
It's a
like
father's
that.
right. You get the names wrong. Exactly.
Yeah, I would think
Yeah.
that might be your favorite scene. That
That's
was
one
a
of them,
great
right.
scene.
But I also
and
remember-
both of you were so great.
Thank you. You remember how hot it was? It was about 115 degrees.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Some of the
Yeah.
crew members were passing out.
Yeah.
And I also remember the great Imogen Coca. Unfortunately, she had a car accident, so she was very petrified of
And she
driving,
remember she
remember?
held
And
her
we-
hand up on the
yeah,
car.
That's right. And I remember the Teamsters driving us into Monument Valley, and poor Imogen was like holding on to the roof, But I mean, we just had such great experiences.
I remember when I hired Emma Jean, and it was just, I just pictured Emma Jean
Yeah.
when as Aunt Edna.
Right.
And when I hired her, she came in to meet me, and she said, you think I can be that mean? I
She
said,
was
"Emma
afraid
Jean,
to be mean."
You're one of the world's great actresses. You can be anything you want."
Right.
Dana, what was your favorite scene?
That's great.
Let me go back to Emma Jean. She was like, am I being too mean? Is this just awful? People aren't going to like me. I'm like, you're funny. You're just great. But answering your question about the funniest scene for me is, it's so subtle. Mike had his foot on the car and his sock and his big foot, and Chevy's like, what's that smell? What's that smell? He's like, feet, feet, feet.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why, but that just hit me. It's such a reality thing for me.
Okay, we have to cut right now. We'll be back in a second, or a couple of seconds, or a minute. Okay, we're back. Dana, during the break, you mentioned John Candy.
Yes.
God, he was such a funny and such a talented guy. Yeah. And I hurt John's feelings that he only worked 3 days. And it was at the amusement park.
Right.
And I remember he came over to me and we started chatting. And I remember turning to him and said, "You're working 3 days and you're getting $1 million?" And he was offended. He said, "Yeah, so what?"
Wow.
I guess, and he was worth it, I guess.
Was so
And
worth
nowadays,
it.
getting $1 million doesn't mean too much, but
It's incredible.
back when we made that movie, that was a lot for a cameo.
That's right. And I remember we shot at Magic Mountain, right? We shot
That's
out
right.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I, of course, remember so well that running scene to Chariots of Fire.
Right.
When
We
you
were
were in,
parodying that because that was a big movie at that time, right? Yeah.
yeah.
That was such a great experience. I mean, all these people, Eugene Levy, Frank McRae, Eddie Bracken. I mean, there were so many legends. I just had my eyes wide open, you know. It's up to everybody. I really love
You
it.
know, Eddie Brackman's a big star during the war.
Yeah.
And
Wonderful guy.
I picked up a newspaper one day, and he was doing dinner theater in New Jersey. And there was a picture of him, and he looked just like Walt Disney.
Wow.
And that's why we hired him.
He
That's
loved
where you got the
shows. He
idea,
loved
right?
doing plays all the time in New York. I got to see him.
He was wonderful, wasn't he?
Yeah, he
A
really
wonderful
was.
person, wonderful performer, always a performer. But I wanted to say that when John Candy was hired, Mike came over to me and was like, "John Candy, oh my gosh, John Candy." Because he was from that famous
SCTV.
SCTV, and I was like, huh? I had no idea who he was. He's like, "You don't understand, oh my God."
Yeah.
And so I understood very quickly the scenes that you covered. He was just so wonderful, and I...
He had such a great heart, too. He really was like Uncle Buck, you know. His
You
heart was as
know,
big as his
one of
body.
my
He's a
very
great guy.
favorite comedies, aside from the ones we did, and
Yeah.
well,
you
and
produced
talking
all the
about
best
John
ones.
Hughes, was Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
That's a great film. That's a great
Great
film.
movie.
And again, has a lot of heart, you know. Yeah, it's really nice.
All right. How was it working with Chevy?
Chevy was hilarious. Well, remember we had. Do you guys remember we shot the original ending, and then what
Right.
happened was they tested the movie, and it didn't.
I remember
Right?
it well.
Yeah, I mean you could
It
talk
was too
about
much of a
that.
downer.
Harold
guess
and I
They
sat in a
wanted to
room for
make-
3 days trying to figure out what to do next.
Right. Well, there's that thing I remember too, because we shot that original ending at a mansion, and it was supposed to be Roy Wally's house with the
Right.
Walt Disney type character.
And we
So I remember we
set him
shot
up.
that.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that, Matty?
Well, what happened is we felt that there was a drop in audience reaction at the end of the movie.
Right.
And so Harold and I, just the two of us, sat in a room and said, what did we do? And suddenly it hit both of us. We had spent the entire movie getting to Wally World, and we never got to Wally World.
Right. Right.
And then we just, and Harold and I were very much in sync. We had worked a lot together before,
Right.
you know, on stage shows and various other projects, radio. And we just, you know how it is when you click with somebody, as you
Sure.
did with John Hughes in
Right.
those movies.
Right.
We just, that's what it was. We never got to Wally World.
Right.
So,
So the first memory I have is when we cut to, we're doing the reshoot about 6 months later, and I was thrilled. We got to go back to the set, and I was going to see all my friends
And you
again.
had grown like this
And
one
I had
time.
grown about 4 inches. And the first thing, of course, I had like a huge zit on my cheek or something. And Chevy, of course, right away points it out. Nice, puberty's working. Or he said something really funny to me to kind of embarrass me. But again, I was just thrilled to be back with everybody. And we were shooting at Santa Anita Racetrack. And that was that Chariots of Fire kind of spoof where we run up to
no,
the
no,
front
I
of the
think we were
park.
shooting at
was
Six
it?
Flags.
Well, we did the running scene. Remember at the racetrack, and then
Oh,
when we
right,
got
yeah,
into the
right,
park,
I'm sorry,
we
you're
were
right. Yeah,
that
yeah,
movie
yeah.
magic thing, right?
Your memory has to be better than mine.
No, it's okay.
It was such a hot day. We were
Yeah,
in everyone
yeah.
was fainting.
So we did the
and-
running scene when we get to the park, and then there was like a matte painting of the wide shot. This is before
Yeah,
digital everything, you
Right.
know?
Yeah,
And,
that's
and then
right.
we did getting into the park. And like you said, we finally got to the park as a family. So then the ratings went right, you know, the test scores went right up after
Oh,
that,
they
I'm
went
sure.
through the roof.
Yeah.
And there was a guy who worked for Warner Brothers at the time, I'm sorry, I don't recall his name, who wrote songs for them. And we said to him, we need a little song
Yeah.
to go with the
Lindsay
Marty
Buckingham.
Moose.
Right.
Oh, and Harold's voice did the yuck.
You remember Marty Moose?
Right.
Yeah.
Harold was the voice of Marty Moose,
Yeah,
right?
sorry,
And it was
parks
Lindsay-
closed,
Lindsay Buckingham,
folks.
right? From Fleetwood Mac wrote the song. Yeah.
No, Lindsay didn't write that one.
Oh, he didn't? Okay, I'm
No,
sorry.
Lindsay did
Another
the
one.
score.
I
Oh,
see.
who's the
Okay.
thing of our favorite show?
No, he didn't
Marty
do the
Moose?
score, I'm sorry. He did
And
a
Miss-
number of the songs.
Right, right.
We're talking about
Like
Marty
Holiday
Moose?
Road, right? Yeah,
Holiday Road,
Right.
which
Okay.
is played to this day. I
Yeah.
hear it frequently.
definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. He was wonderful.
But all the experiences, I mean, we went from Chicago, we went from Durango, Colorado to where else we were?
Utah, Arizona, Colorado,
I mean, it was a
California.
real trip. We went from the Midwest and all the way
Whole
back.
summer.
And
Incredible.
I remember the funeral scene on Aunt Edna's porch or
Oh, yeah.
cousin somebody's porch.
Right.
Oh.
I think we were in Arizona when we shot that, right?
And we
Yeah.
were wearing wetsuits underneath our clothes because it was so cold and so dark. They wanted
Yeah.
to keep us warm, and it was.
That's one of my favorite Chevy moments too. That scene because he's so funny in that. I think
Oh.
some of it was written, but then he would just add
It's like
it,
Baruch
right?
Adetoina, huh? He was doing a
Yeah.
wonderful.
Chevy
Jewish
always
prayer
adds a
and-
couple
yeah.
of lines here.
Yeah.
We don't know
Yeah,
what
he
he
was great.
He
Great with
was-
physical comedy too. always.
his portrayal of Clark Griswold is one of the great
Classic.
Yeah,
portraits. Really great.
definitely.
There was a fan who had Clark on his thigh. He came up and said, "Look at this tattoo." I'm like, "Wah." It's a whole thing of Czech. It was
Oh my
amazing.
God.
That's how iconic that man is to people. It's
That's
fantastic.
Christy
incredible.
Brinkley, and I just
Of course,
remember everything. We
Christy, don't
shot at
forget
the-
Christy.
Yeah, I was so in love with her. I had every sports. I would
Don't
wait
forget
for
about
the
Christy.
February Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition.
You know, I
Suddenly,
remember
2 years later, thanks to Matty, I'm on set with Christy Brinkley. I was like freaking out.
I do remember when we shot the nude scene in the shower with Beverly, and Chevy with the banana came
Yeah.
I
on
snuck
to
on
do
the
the
set,
psycho
right?
bit. So I walk onto the set, and the shower casing is up,
Yeah.
and Beverly's walk in with a bathrobe on, and she's bare-breasted underneath. And she gets in the shower, and I look around, and there's 14-year-old Anthony Michael Hall sitting about
I
10
didn't
feet,
know
just
that. You
looking at the
he's turning
shower.
red. He's turning pink.
And I grabbed him by the shoulder, and I said, "Get the hell out of here!"
Kid, get the
You
hell
were
out
so
of here.
busted. I didn't know
I was.
that.
I was trying to catch a look. What can you do? It's all those National Lampoon magazines I had at home, you know?
Okay, we got a break now for somebody who pays the rent.
Okay.
Okay, we're back. We're back with Dana Barron and Anthony Michael Hall, the original Griswold kids. Yeah. And so great in so many other movies and television shows. Dana, you were on Beverly Hills.
90210, Nikki
Yeah.
Witt. Yeah. I
you,
brought in-
yeah, you won some kind of award.
I won, yeah, there was almost like the awards that they have nowadays for Nickelodeon. It was the most popular, blah, blah, blah. It was fine. But I won an Emmy Award for something else before that, but that wasn't comedy.
Tell us about it. What was it?
Yeah.
That was No Means No. Martin Sheen had produced it. It was a very serious, like I said, very serious.
Well, we don't talk serious.
Yeah.
We have the drama here.
Hey, I'm going to ask you something. Michael, I'll start with you.
Okay.
You're not counting anything you've been in or anything I've been in, produced,
Yes, sir.
or anything Dana's been in. What's your favorite comedy movie?
Honestly, as a kid, it was one of your first. It was Animal House. I loved Animal House.
It doesn't count.
Okay, you're right. You can't include a Mr. Simmons project. Okay, let me see. Well, I love Blues Brothers too. That was one of my favorites.
There you go.
And then I loved some of Eddie Murphy's first films. But as a kid, some of my favorites were like I discovered Richard Pryor and George Carlin as a kid, and then I kind of discovered Lenny Bruce. So I've always loved stand-up comics, and comedies.
Every guest we have here mentions KARL and Richard Pryor.
Yeah. They're just such
Bruce
great.
is before them,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
He goes back quite a way.
Yeah.
Dana, your favorite comedy movie?
I was really thinking, please don't laugh at me, Young Frankenstein.
That's a great
Mel
I
Brooks.
find
Yeah.
that so much fun. Every
Yeah.
time I see it, I just laugh and laugh and laugh. So,
Oh, me too. All of Mel Brooks's films are so great.
Yeah.
History
Yeah.
of the World and all that.
of course.
Talk about it. You can't talk about anything.
My kid likes Spaceballs, but it's not my thing, but it's definitely a classic when you have.
There's also that great moment in History of the World where the guy goes, "Have you seen a pack of Trojans?" Guy goes, "I just ran out."
I don't remember that.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm going to go on. Your favorite movie or television performer comedy?
Comedy. Movie or television performer. Okay. Well, I think you got to go back to the greats. Jackie Gleason, the original Honeymooners, is such a classic. There's so many great ones. I mean, thanks to you.
Boy, you were about, your mother wasn't born.
You're not kidding, but I watched all that stuff growing up. And then
Yeah.
the Mel Brooks stuff as a little kid in the 70s. I'm
Yeah.
50 now, but I was watching all that stuff.
And the
I-
Odd Couple, things like that during the
all
television
that
era.
stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Neil Simon was another great writer. There's been so many.
I just passed away.
Yeah,
Great genius.
he really was.
Dana?
He really was.
I'm on board with him. We're talking about all the original television shows that just, All in the Family. I mean, those are subtle but just real.
Such great shows.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, and you got away with a lot of things back then. Like Vacation, we got away with a lot of things that you couldn't say nowadays. I don't think.
Right,
Vacation was a family movie, but people forget it was R-rated.
right,
And there were that scene where Chevy loses it, and
right,
there are a million vulgar words in there.
right,
Yes.
There was nudity.
right.
Yes.
There was sex.
But I also love that basic paradigm you had with Harold, that you guys had created. Whatever could go wrong did. And that's what people relate to. They relate to everything.
Their vacations
They
do
get
go
lost in
wrong.
a ghetto.
And it always does when the family
That's
takes
it.
a trip.
That's right. That's right. Oh, there were so many great memories.
We're memes now that we say things that's repeated online all the time now. And my kid, like I said, he's 12, and he's like, "You're a meme," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay."
That's awesome.
Okay, one more.
Yeah.
Favorite line or scene from a comedy?
Wow. Wow. Okay, this is tough.
I'm gonna bow down to you.
Okay,
on
I
this
got to go
one.
back to Animal House, even though it's one of your greats. The scene where Belushi, it's kind of like me getting busted on the set trying to watch the scene where Beverly was half naked. The scene where Belushi is spying on the sorority house on the ladder. Yeah, and they catch him, and then it's just that look before he falls out of frame on the,
This
That-
is subtle
the
look,
ladder.
this
Yeah,
subtle
that.
look.
And I think the lunch scene too, because as a kid, Belushi was just great. He was one of my favorites.
Oh, the and
Yeah.
the pimple popping
See
the
if you can
pimple
guess
in
what
his
I am
cheek.
now. That's it. Yeah, exactly. This is
Is
great.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm on board
Dana?
with that. I have to follow him. I went like we used to, like all the time on vacation. That's like beautiful sign. The Grand Canyon, and Chevy just goes, "Ooh." Don't you want to look at beauties? It's just
Oh,
like that,
right,
and that's
right.
it. I
love
mean,
that.
just like this. You're talking about
Yeah.
the subtleties that you just relate to and people relate to. And like
Yeah.
I said, now that I have a kid, I'm going, oh, this is I always say this is a vacation moment. A friend of mine sat in a Reese's peanut butter cup, and her white pants got smeared with chocolate all around. I'm like, that should be in vacation.
Right.
That's funny because her kid threw a peanut butter cup and she sat in it. It's just funny, just funny
The things that happen, yeah.
The things that
It's so
happen.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask you a question that we didn't think about before.
Okay.
At least by we, I mean me and the director and other people. What scene from movies you did, like with John Hughes, forget about Vacation for a moment,
Yeah.
what scene in those John Hughes movies that you did? Yeah, and remember you were somebody called you the King of Nerds at one
Right,
point, right?
right.
Which was, when I saw that and when I saw the movie, I said, boy, he's some actor, because if Anthony Michael is anything, he's not a nerd.
Oh, that's
No.
fun. Thank you.
And you proved that in Johnny Be Good, right?
Thank you.
Oh, that's
Thank you,
right.
Matty, yeah.
Great.
Well, what the one that comes to mind is in Weird Science, which was if we include Vacation, because he had written it, but I didn't meet John then. I did Vacation, then the three with Hughes. But when we did Weird Science, there's a scene in the bar. We go to this old blues bar, And that kind of stems from, I would come to the set and I was always listening to Richard Pryor at that time when I was a kid. And I would kind of mimic this character that Pryor used to do called Mudbone, who was this older black gentleman that he knew from Illinois. And it would crack Hughes up. And so what he did is he kind of set up that scene in Weird Science where I go to the old blues bar and I'm talking to these older black gentlemen, and we kind of ad-libbed it. So that was, I think, the peak of, the freedom that I enjoyed working with him, which was such a blessing. Because all these years later, all the work that I've done, nothing measures up to the experience I had that you gave us on Vacation and then working with John.
Oh, it was your first really big.
Oh, definitely.
Big movie. Yeah.
Well, just so much love too on the set. There were so many great people, and it was just.
It was
a family.
It was a beautiful shoot.
Yeah, it really was.
And considering that we traveled all the time.
That's right. We saw so much of the country too.
We're on vacation.
Yeah,
I'm doing Vacation.
Okay, well, guys, I enjoyed this being
Same
with
here,
you
man.
and talking to you about Vacation.
Thank
But
you.
we gotta go. It's time.
Wait, no, I have a thing.
Oh, wait a minute. We have a little
We have a
surprise
little
for you,
surprise
Maddie.
for
Hold on.
you.
We brought a little something here.
Wait,
have
no,
Think it's on.
it's filled back here.
This is
Don't
close?
look, don't look,
Watch
don't
this.
look.
What? Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Put
We
it on him.
have a very special,
A very
that's right,
good surprise for you.
Marty Moose Wally World hat for our dear friend and our boss and the man who put us on the map in this industry, Mr. Matty Simmons.
It'll look cute. No, you
Let's
gotta
give it a
wear it. You
try,
gotta wear
Maddie,
it.
shall we?
No,
Oh my
no, no.
God.
And then you have
Come
to
on,
sing the
Maddie.
Marty
Look at
Moose
the
song.
ears.
Oh, am I beautiful?
Oh, look at this,
Paint this.
Gorgeousness, eh?
It's perfect. Look at him, Tatala.
Who's the
Bye,
moosiest
everybody.
moose we
You know,
Dana,
Marty
Michael, thank
Moose.
you so much.
Who's the star?
Thank you, Maddie.
Our
We
favorite
love
show.
you.
Yes,
Thank
we
you,
love
buddy.
you. Thank you, thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
What a mensch.
Thanks for the memory, sir.